Shalom, everybody. Welcome to Prophetic Lifestyles with Bernard Bolton, where we are making the prophetic practical, bringing the prophetic into everyday life and creating the future by the choices we make today. And I am so excited to be on. It has been, I don't know how long it's been since we have been able to release one of our weekly Wednesday uh, uh, videos. And so I'm really excited to be on today. And I'm not going to be on a very long time, but I want you to know how much we appreciate you being a subscriber to this channel and supporting this channel in all the different ways that you do. So tonight I want to talk about recognizing prophetic opponents or recognizing prophetic opposition. And unfortunately, I'm just seeing, and it breaks my heart, but I'm seeing so many opponents to the prophetic here on this platform, on other platforms, and then hearing messages from men and women of God who reject the prophetic is really heart-rendering, heartbreaking, because the prophetic is God. God is prophetic. And one of the things the Lord has done, I know he did it in my life. It's been actually 7 years this month when I left the denomination that I have been a part of for over 40 years and was born in that denomination. My mother and father were members in that denomination in their lifetime, my grandparents. And so I walked away from it 7 years. And so I'm actually coming to the end of another cycle. I always get excited about the number 7 because God, he does some incredible things in my life every 7 years. I don't know what he's going to do this year, but I'm looking forward to it. But many of us we've come out of religion, we've come out of traditional churches, we've come out of, we've come out of the buildings, but still as we are encountering and experiencing God, there are still people that are opposing the very move of God in our lives, okay? And so I just wanted to talk tonight. If you're dealing with opposition to the prophetic, if there's people in your life who don't believe that God speaks today and that God speaks to believers. Some people believe that God speaks, but he only speaks through leadership. He can only speak through the pastor or the teacher or the apostle and prophet if they believe in the apostle and the prophet. And some people don't believe that God speaks, that the Bible is the voice of God. And when the Bible was closed, after Revelation was written, after the canonized scriptures was written, God stopped speaking. And some people have had some, and then some people go to the extreme and they have strange, almost, non-biblical or unbiblical experiences that they believe God is speaking. But I want to talk specifically about those who are opposing, because if you're dealing with opposition, the purpose of opposition is to stop the move of God in your life. The purpose of opposition is to get you to change, get you to surrender. Opposition is a word linked to warfare. And if there's anyone in your life opposing the prophetic, the church that I was in, there were a lot of people in that church. They opposed me bringing the prophetic to that church, even though I was the pastor. And I tried to bring the prophetic into that church, and there were people who opposed it because they didn't believe it was a part of their denomination. That denomination is now dead, as many denominations are, because the Lord has withdrawn his presence from many of these denominational churches because they have not submitted to his will, and they have not embraced the new order that he's bringing, which is the kingdom. What is the new order? What is the new thing that God is doing? God is bringing forth his kingdom. And this kingdom cannot be contained in a building. It can't be confined in a service. His kingdom is bigger than any church, any movement, any. All right. So here is what a prophetic opponent looks like. And I want to turn to Acts 13. And I don't really want to speak a long time tonight, but I just want to give you these because I want to help you to recognize when there is real prophetic opposition, prophetic opponents, when it's real. Now, sometimes we get to thinking that just because a person is acting a certain way that they are an opponent. They may not be an opponent. They may just have a bad attitude. Okay. They may just be a mean person. But I want to give you tonight, I want to give you four specific, I'm going to give you four characteristics of what a prophetic opponent looks like. All right. So starting in Acts 13, verses 8 through 10, but Elymas the sorcerer, for so his name is translated, withstood them, seeking to turn the proconsul away from the faith. Then Saul, who also is called Paul, filled with Holy Spirit, looked intently at him and said, O full of all deceit and all fraud, you son of the devil, you enemy of all righteousness, will you not cease perverting the straight ways of the Lord? And now indeed the hand of the Lord is upon you, and you shall be blind, not seeing the sun for a time. And immediately a dark mist fell on him, and he went around seeking someone to lead him by the hand. Then the proconsul believed when he saw what had been done, being astonished at the teaching of the Lord. All right, so this person, Elymas, I'm just going to say Elymas. If that's not the correct pronunciation, forgive me. Elymas was an opponent. Now, he opposed something different because the Apostle Paul was not operating in the prophetic. The Apostle Paul as an apostle, was bringing the gospel to this territory, which is the function of an apostle. He was bringing this new message into a territory that had not received the gospel. Okay. Apostles are those who bring the word into unknown places. And so as Paul was preaching the gospel, Elymas, who was a sorcerer, was trying to interfere. So this is a type of a prophetic opponent, someone who withstands the prophetic. Okay, so I want you to look at Elymas as one who is a prophetic opponent. All right. A prophetic opponent is someone who's trying to turn you away from the prophetic faith, or from faith that God speaks, that God communicates, that God speaks to you in your dreams, and God speaks through prophetic words, whether they are words of wisdom, words of knowledge, or the word of the Lord, that God speaks through signs. All right. And so a prophetic opponent is someone who stands against the prophetic faith, that the prophetic is real. Don't really have a problem with the church. A prophetic opponent doesn't have a problem with the church, but they have a problem with you moving in the prophetic. All right. And so when Paul called him out, and Paul began to discern, Paul recognized his opposition. Paul recognized his opposition. So you have to recognize who in your life is trying to turn you away from faith in the prophetic, from the belief that God is speaking to you, that God is communicating through dreams, through words, through other believers. God is communicating to you in your circumstances. God is speaking. He is a spirit who speaks. And many times a person like Elymas will rise up to withstand your faith, to oppose and become an opponent of your faith. All right. And so when someone is opposing you, I'm thankful that I don't get a lot of opposition. I'm in a place, I guess, because I've removed myself from so many religious people, and so many church people, and even the few people that are church that I deal with, they have a different spirit, and so it is very rare for me to face an opponent, a person who opposes what I do as an apostle, as one who mentors and trains in the prophetic. All right. But for some of you, you're right in the middle because you're connected to people, whether it's your family, you may be going to a church that doesn't believe in the prophetic. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on you. And I pray that you will soon leave that place. All right. Number 2, a prophetic opponent is someone who believes every prophet is false. When you hear people always talking about false prophets and they never speak about true prophets, all right, that is a person who is a prophetic opponent, because they believe that there is no prophet. That's why every prophet is false. They don't believe that there are prophets walking among us. And so they say when a prophet arises, he's false, he's fake, especially if he is a prophet who has fallen in sin. And I'm not giving any excuse, but the Bible says that the gifts and callings are without repentance. God doesn't take back the gifts. Okay, he will deal with the prophet who falls in sin. But it is not, he doesn't call us to oppose the prophet. And I know we've seen some prophets, we've seen people calling themselves prophets. You may be doubting. It's okay to doubt, but pray. Pray for discernment. Don't follow them until you have an assurity, until you are sure, until there is an assurance that they're a true prophet. Okay, and so in the midst of all of this, but a prophetic opponent, every prophet is false. There is no true prophets, and that's why they always talking about false prophet. He's a false prophet. She's a false prophet. Everybody is false to them. All right, because they have no discernment of the truth. And so when you have been trafficking in the counterfeit, or you have been walking with people who have no belief in prophets, okay, it's very hard for you to see a true prophet. Now, I'm thankful because all of the prophets in my life are true. I don't follow after a lot of prophets, but I have prophets. I have a prophet who is like a sister to me. My mentor she's an apostle, but she's very prophetic. She prophesies to me. She prophesied a book. I'm going to write that book this year just because she released that was a word of the Lord from her. So I have prophets in my life who I believe. That my birthday, there's a prophet who I seek every year. I get a word from him, and that word becomes a part of my vision for the year. All right, but listen, some of you are following. You're just in the midst of prophetic opponents, and every prophet is false. There are no true prophets to a prophetic opponent because they believe that God is not speaking through the prophets. All right, now What is the motivation of a prophetic opponent? What is their motivation? They are motivated by a religious spirit. They are motivated by a religious spirit. They practice religion. They don't have a relationship with the Lord. See, here's the difference between religion. Religion is outward. It's a show. Okay. Religion is combative. Religion is confrontational all the time. And so when a person has a religious spirit, they don't have a real relationship with God, because if they did, then they would have God's heart. And God doesn't chase after people to damn them to hell, to condemn them, and to humiliate them. That's not the heart of God. All right. If this person, what motivates them is condemnation and judgment. They are motivated by condemnation. So they're only interested in condemning the prophet or the prophetic and judging. And so they have to judge everything that a prophet does. They feel as if God has called them to be the prophet judge. That's a religious spirit. Remember, it was the religious leaders that crucified Jesus. Of course, that was God's plan. God used them, but they were still judged because that condemnation was in their heart. A religious person is more concerned about keeping and maintaining what they believe is of God. And so when a prophetic opponent has a religious spirit, they're not going to embrace the prophetic, because the prophetic does not fit into their picture of what their religion looks like. Number 4 is the last one. A prophetic opponent is deceived. They have been deceived. Okay, that the Hebrew word for deceive is patak, so it's a pay word, and we're in the pay decade. So there are many believers right now are being deceived. Patah is spelled by these letters: pay, tav, and hey. Pay is, of course, the mouth. How did they get deceived? Because they believed something they heard. They came in agreement with something they heard. Every person who is a prophetic opponent, they receive that from the teachings of someone else who is a prophetic opponent. They receive that. And so the mouth, they heard something out of the mouth of a prophetic opponent. They agreed with it. They aligned with it. Many times, and this is how the demonic operates, because the second letter tav is signs. And we have to understand that signs are not just God, but the devil also operates in signs. And listen, the devil has tricked many of you. He has deceived many of you because he is using signs that aligns with your religious beliefs instead of aligning with your faith in God. There are some of us who have experienced God by the signs that we've experienced God because of the signs that he has shown us. Others of us oppose the move of God because we are deceived by demonic signs. Be careful what you call evidence, because what you call evidence can actually be deception. I'm not telling you not to pay attention to evidence, but all evidence must go through the lenses of discernment, and it must be weighed by love. All right. And then deception comes from false revelation. I believe that most of the revelation, I know that all of the revelation that I receive comes from the Lord, so it's true. But there is a false revelation that comes from hell. It is spoken from hell. And what we must remember is that just as God has preachers and God has messengers to proclaim his truth, the enemy also has messengers to proclaim his lies. And I am bold enough to say that any opposition to the prophetic is straight from the bowels of hell, that the devil is raising up. And I know that there have been many, and listen, many of the people who you call false prophets, they're not false. They are immature. They have not been mentored. They have not come they have not been a part of a community that loved them and raised them in maturity. Okay. Yes, they follow after other prophets, and they repeat what others said. But listen, we cannot allow deception to come into our hearts, because deception opens us up to being fooled. And so many of you who oppose the prophetic, you oppose it because you are deceived. Okay, so here's the four characteristics of a prophetic opponent. Number one, a prophetic opponent is one who withstands, one who opposes the prophetic. Number two, a prophetic opponent believes every prophet is false. They don't believe in any true prophets. Number three, their motivation, the motivation of a prophetic opponent is condemnation and judgment. They are motivated by a religious spirit. And then number four, a prophetic opponent is one who is deceived. They have heard something, they have agreed with it, they've fallen in line with it. It is a demonic sign that they have seen. They believe it's God, and they have received false revelation. All right, God bless you. I pray that this will help you to discern. And this is what we want to do. We want to discern. We don't want to go to war. I'm not giving you this for you to go to war. I want you to walk in knowing, because the Lord is calling you to be prophetic. The Lord has opened the door for you to hear his voice and to prophesy. All right. I'm trying to get this group together here on YouTube so that we can gather and I can start training you prophetically. Hopefully we're going to be able to do that real soon. But listen, I'm going to be teaching my first masterclass. My first masterclass. I want to invite you to join me for my first masterclass in 2023, Understanding Times and Seasons. That's going to be Saturday, February the 18th. We're going to start at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm doing something new this year with our master classes and the classes that we're offering through my academy for prophetic training and prophetic development. We're doing something new. So just read the description in the box. All right. God bless you. God bless you. I love all of you. Shalom.